It's well, I'm I'm Jono Brake, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host May King. May King, how are you this morning, or this afternoon, or whatever time it is in England?
Very well, thank you so much for
Very
asking. How
well,
are
very
you?
well. Yeah, good, good. It's always good to see your smiling face, and here to have another fun. Today we've got Tamer Shahin, and I'm really excited about this one. One, because we're both business coaches, but May King, I'm going to let you do the introductions because you've had a lot of interaction with Tamer, and so I'm excited to hear what he's got to say. We're going to be talking a bit about the ups and the downs, the challenges in business, and so May King, take it away.
Well, Dr. Tamer Shahin and I'm actually met at a conference last year, and we were at a mastermind group, and his story was just absolutely incredible. It's really inspiring, and Jono, you and I know that we want to share those stories from the entrepreneurs who have done it, who've been in, who've succeeded, who've failed, who've picked themselves up again. And Tamer's story is no exception. He's the founder of CEO Entrepreneur, and he has just started his YouTube channel, and he's actually sharing his progress on the channel, as well as helping business owners to scale their business. It's an absolute pleasure to have him on the show, Tamer. Why don't you tell the world a little bit more about your story, Tamer?
Thanks, May King. Thanks, Jono. Yeah, I can't really follow that introduction, really. I can just say thank you. That's
she's good at it.
She's really good at it. She's got a way of just like, I'm usually someone who's never lost for words, but then she comes around and then lost for words. Right, thanks. Just a little quick thing about me, I guess, is what you're asking. I actually didn't start off as an entrepreneur, although I kind of I've always been an entrepreneur at heart, always, even as a kid, always tried to sort of do lots of entrepreneurial things. But I actually ended up following in my father's footsteps as a professor at university. Started off in the education system, wanting to get people to really embrace education as it is in the real world. But I found out that I was completely disillusioned. I think the education system had completely sort of gone out of date, out of touch, built back for the Industrial Revolution. And I sort of quickly moved away from there. On the side, I actually grew several seven-figure businesses. And I had a nice portfolio, and it was just something that I had on the side. I moved then to government in the UAE, where I advised ministers there, and I headed up a national productivity improvement program, which was about a $2 billion fund. And what we did there was we were trying to improve productivity on a national scale in all sectors. And that gave me the opportunity to be able to actually have a look at businesses, small, medium, large, of all shapes and sizes, have a look at best practices, what worked, what didn't work, how we actually improved their productivity and output, and so on and so forth. I was also sort of investing, and this is kind of, up until now, everything was great. I saw this tiny little company, which I had invested in to start off with. I saw huge potential, and I went into that company for the first time, kind of like full time. Up until then, I had several businesses on the side, very successfully. But this was the one where I thought, actually, this is something that I can really grow. Within 18 months, we grew it from, I think, 4 people. I went in there, it was 4 people. We went down to 2 and then back up. And I think within 18 months, we were a global influencer in the space of digital health. We were valued at $100 million valuation. And actually, wow. We were having investment coming into the company with term sheets and everything. Yeah. Great. Up until now. Fantastic, Tamer. So what? And then within 30 days, that all went crumbling down. Literally just crumbling down in a way that you couldn't write this stuff, because we had delivered an 8-figure project to a really powerful client in Dubai. I'm not going to mention the names. Sure. And they basically, we delivered it successfully. Everything was great. And then 3 days later, their administration changed, and they turned around and they said, we're not honoring any past contracts. And we were absolutely just devastated, because we had promised a lot of subcontractors money. We had written post-dated checks, because over there, that's how you do business, is you write checks for the future to say, I owe you this much money. And in Dubai, writing and signing a check is actually a personally criminal liability. So whoever signs the check, even if they're an employee, which is the crazy thing, even if they're an employee, whoever signs the check is actually criminally liable for that money. And my business partner at the time had actually signed those checks, not me. He got arrested at the airport coming back to the UK. His wife was giving birth and he was literally flying out for a few days and going back. He got arrested at the airport, called me up from prison after midnight and said, help. And then we were just running around. I sold everything I had. We had 3 branches across the world. We had 40 something staff full time. And then we had other sort of part time and contractors around the world. I had to let everybody go. Ended up basically selling everything I had. I mean, I had like, you know, that lifestyle that people talk about where it's like, you know, the Ferrari, the swimming pool, all of that. I had all of that. And then I had to sell everything. I even went and I got my parents to remortgage their property whilst they were in retirement in the UK. I got them to remortgage their property because we had to sit there and negotiate with these subcontractors so that they could drop the case for my business partner and get him out. And he wasn't able to actually have any kind of assets from himself. So it was me, and I felt responsible for the whole thing. So I ended up literally being $2.5 million dollars, £2 million personally in debt, out of pocket, not for the business. Came back, thankfully got him out of the country. Now, as he was still there in prison, a whole series of events just happened within that 30-day period. And like I said, you just cannot write this stuff. I had actually just flown back from the US. I come back to my house and it had actually flooded completely, where the top ceiling had gone down onto the floor. All of the furniture was destroyed. Everything was completely ruined. I got to a point where we were trying to sell everything we had, and we'd let go of all of the staff, and we had like, I think 2 staff members left, where we said, let's try and keep this business going. Actually, that was a mistake. We should have quit while we were ahead, but we had 2 people still on the business. For me to be able to pay their monthly salary, I went to sell my car, and my car actually, as I was trying to sell it, actually exploded in front of the person I was trying to sell it. The engine went on fire because it had been overheating.
The story gets better, people.
I told you cannot write this stuff. Literally, you cannot write this stuff. And it was just one of those series of events where everything that could possibly go wrong was really going wrong. And I just came back. Up until that point, I had tried to stay strong. I had tried to say, like, everyone's looking to me to help them, to support them, and get my friend out of, like, I'm business partner and very, very good friend, out of the country, out of problems. And the only time that I actually really, really, really sort of just lost it was actually in prison. I had just gone in the second day to see him, and I had spoken to his wife, who was giving birth in London. And she was expecting him to come back, and she had wanted to speak to him. I'd called her the day before and I said, he's not, you know, there's an issue. And I hadn't really told her exactly what has happened. I said, we're trying to sort it out. There's been an issue. He's been detained in the airport. And then after that, she said, well, let me talk to him the next day. I went in to try and talk to him, and I saw him behind this glass wall thing where you just could not get the mobile phones for him to talk. And he would, you know, it was just a sight. And at that point there, I had the phone and I was holding it in my hand, speaking to her on the phone. And I just broke down into tears. And that was where I just said to her, I'm sorry, I can't, I'm going to try and get him home. And that was literally the worst sort of point that I had in that entire journey. So and that's one of the things where when I look back at this, it's like, hey, you know, yeah, I lost my car, I lost my house, I lost this. None of that mattered to me. It was the people and the friends that we had, and how that kind of, you begin to know who your real friends are. Yeah. Anyway, so I came back to the UK. I'm going to cut this short because
this is a great, keep going.
I came back to the UK, tail between my legs, basically. Started I started another digital health company, which was an idea that we'd got from the previous one, which did fantastic. So I gave a TEDx talk on that, got an innovation award, got funded, was able to settle my debts, personal debts. And everyone seemed to say, hey, you're doing well, and I wasn't. Still in the back of my mind, I had failed, and I had not really failed so bad. And we are never trained when we come out of schools, we are never trained to deal with the real world and deal with failure and we're actually conditioned to fear failure, because we're taught, do not fail your exams, do not do this, do not do that. So I had not dealt with that inside. And that's, I think, when I met May King, was at that one of the points where, yes, I had picked myself back up on my feet against, financially, but inside I was still a mess. We were sitting at this mastermind table, and I was just talking through some of this story, and I just saw mouths drop, and they were saying, you need to go and talk about this, and you need to tell people what you're doing, and what you've done. Running a business isn't all glitz and glamour. All these people who sit there who tell you, yeah, we can turn a business around, and, we can build a business in 60 days and you can make 7 and 8 figures and all of that rubbish. There is a lot of it out there.
There's a lot of BS out there.
There is a lot of BS out there. And at the time when I was actually running my businesses, I was looking for business coaches who had actually run businesses and had the experience of running business, and they were very few and far between. Now that I'm coming into this industry now and speaking to people like yourself, I see that there is some there, but the majority, like you said, there's a lot of BS out there, and there's a lot of people who sit there and just say, hey, it's easy, make some money. And I thought, no, I actually want to talk about what actually goes on in running a business. How do you actually understand and provide the sort of the support that entrepreneurs really need to have, that they don't get in education and they don't get in the real world at the moment. So that's me in a nutshell. So
I think that's our best introductory story ever.
All right. Okay. So that's it. Should we end the show while we're ahead?
I really want to go and light a fire now and sit with you around the fire, man. It's well, but I really empathize with that story, because I mean, my numbers were lower, but very, very similar journey in having to sell everything to clear debts and to honor the people that were around you and caring more about the people. For me, I was married with 2 young kids. I cared about them more than anything else, and protecting my family. So it was a 7 or 8 year journey for me as well. But yeah, so I love that. I love that whole aspect you talked about. The real low point was realizing the people impact that it had. And obviously through your good friend. Are you still good friends with that person today?
Very good friends, actually. Really,
That's
really
amazing.
Good friends. He's gone off and done other things, but we stay in touch
Sure.
all the time, and we're actually really good friends. Funnily enough, so is his wife. Even though that I felt responsible at the time, the family are really good friends of ours. So yes.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And so, I don't want to kind of get sidetracked, but it really is. And this is the heartbeat of an entrepreneur. Yeah, we talk about the product and the process and the business, but once we start having people around us, it's almost like we shift from this kind of caretaker role to being mum or dad, right?
Yeah.
In a sense, even if it is a co-founder or a partner or whatever, there is that kind of protective instinct in the right people, I guess.
Yes. And this is actually one of the biggest realizations that I found moving forward, because you're very right. We sort of get that, we become very protective of our team and our people, and we think that we're very responsible for them. And that was one of the things that I realized why I was so messed up inside, was that I felt that I had all of that responsibility. Everyone had relied on me. I had an employee who had actually moved countries to go and work with me, and she was basically a few days before that, 7 days before all of that happened, we were celebrating actually the delivery of that project, and she was literally saying to me, this is much more than a job for me, and I was telling her this is going to only get better. And 7 days later, I was sitting in front of her telling her we're going to have to let her go. And she was looking at me and she's saying, I moved my life for you. I invested so much into this. And what do you say to people like that?
Yeah.
But what I realized afterwards is that responsibility is not being responsible for people and actually carrying their burdens, because that's what I was doing. And that's actually a mistake. You do not carry people's burdens. Responsible is being responsible. So you are able to allow them to carry their burdens, and you are responsible to make them accountable to carry their own burdens. And I think that that was a really big distinction that I had, that I discovered afterwards, because up until that point, I had a lot of people around me because I was successful in you know, define whatever you want to define success is. But from a financial point of view, I was successful. And people were there, you know, my best friends. The minute all of that happened, nearly everyone disappeared. Nearly everyone disappeared. And actually the people that you least expected to be there for you were the ones that actually turned up when it really mattered. And they were the ones that actually came in. I had another friend of mine, who literally went there and borrowed money from other friends so that he can give it to me so that we can get a ticket back home. You know, so you begin to learn who your friends are, and then you begin to understand actually this narrative that you're seeing in your head as things are playing out is only from your head, and it's only from your perspective. It's not actually, the truth is what you are perceiving it to be. And what I did was, at that time, I had said to myself, I had failed. I was responsible for all these people. I was responsible for ruining their lives. I was responsible for this. There were a lot of subcontractors out there with a dagger after me, saying that I was a fraud and I had not paid them. And that was the story that was going through my mind. But when I got through that and I sat down and kind of rewrote that narrative and revisited that story, it was a completely different mindset, because it was a mindset where I say, actually, I am a better business person today than I was before. I actually, you know, and there are so many different things that you start writing down and saying, actually, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have met my wife today. Because that's when I came back to the UK and I met my wife, actually, and she's the best thing since sliced bread. So, you know, maybe better than sliced bread. I need to watch what I'm saying.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Hey, she's watching. Better than sliced bread.
That's a very English Australian term.
Yeah, it is. But you get what I'm saying. I think people are very, very important, and that's what matters. And making sure that you have a real good perspective on that is crucial throughout whatever journey you're taking.
So this is an interesting, you started to talk about success, whatever that means to you. I'd like to just hang around this idea of success, right? Because, you know, you probably coach a lot of startups, a lot of business people like I do, you know, May King does as well. And so everyone wants to be like the next Bezos or the next Zuckerberg or the next Gates or whatever, you know, they're not necessarily at that level, but they want to be successful. They want to make a lot of money. And so, you know, often they chase after that rather than chasing after stuff that, so let's talk about this concept of success, because this journey, and you've unpacked a little bit anyway, but this journey has really reframed, by the sound of it, has really reframed your view of success. Because the things you thought were good metrics, and they're not bad metrics, they're just on their own, they're just stuff, right? But they're not bad metrics in the sense that if you legitimately earn them and deserve them, that's fine. That's not going to get a poverty mindset.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And it was one of those things where the materialistic things became irrelevant to me, because I'd had all of that, and just as they came, they went, and I didn't really miss them. Yeah, you enjoy them, and I'm not going to deny that you enjoy them at the time, but they're neither here nor there, and it's not really what I would define as doing something that's meaningful. And I think that success for me changed and shifted from outwardly metrics to actual alignment with what you believe is right and where you want to head. And I think that really was a big sort of shift in my framing, as you quite rightly put it. And when you speak with people, and this was one of the reasons why I started CEO Entrepreneur. You're right. I do sort of help sort of entrepreneurs sort of scale their businesses. One of the first questions that I ask them is actually, what does success look like to you? How do you define success? Because people either want freedom, they want time freedom so that they can spend more time with their family, or they want financial freedom so that they can actually spend more time with their families or loved ones, or go away and do something that they really enjoy. And it's usually about that freedom, but also it's a case of having impact and control, so that they are in control of their lives, and they sometimes want to have impact and contribution to society. And it's that measure and those levers that you sort of need to make sure that you sit down and play around with and say, all right, actually, which one is more important to you? And based on that, the way that you build your business and the way that you manage and grow your business should actually be very different. And it shouldn't just be a, hey, let's be the next Bezos, because many people don't want to actually be that. When they get, when they get to that, if they do get to that, they won't actually say that this is not the life I wanted. I wanted to have an easy life. I wanted to be free. I wanted to, spend time with my family. So it depends. So yeah, I agree with you. Success for me changed. And for me, from my perspective, success changed to being able to impact as many entrepreneurs as possible, and being able to help them on their journey, because I don't want them to go through necessarily what I went through. And I feel that I went through what I went through because we were not prepared well enough in our way, whether it's through education or training or guidance or how the world is kind of set up today. That is one aspect of success. But also, yes, I do want to be successful in my business from a financial perspective, but only so much so that it would actually allow me to live the life that I actually really want and be sort of
right.
Get that alignment. And I think that to me was how I've kind of reframed all of that. Does that mean I don't want the business to grow and make money? No, it doesn't. Of course I want it to grow and make money. But it's no longer my fundamental priority.
So you start to really head into that world of purpose, and there's a reason why we exist. So I imagine every business venture, everything you've been in since, has been very much framed by that whole purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even the business that I came back from Dubai, and I came, the digital health one was actually based around mental health. So it was a technology for mental health. So everything that I've done since then has been very much honed towards making sure that we have that impact and we have that ability to make sure that we are somehow contributing to society and making sure that people who have struggled along the way, we try and minimize that struggle. I'm not going to lie and say it completely goes away, because it never does. And even as we're training and mentoring entrepreneurs and business owners at this stage, we still tell them things are going to go bad. It's going to go tough. And one of the reasons why I started the YouTube channel and actually document my journey was to show people that, hey, it's not just about overnight success. These things take time, and it takes consistency, and it takes being measured, and it takes a whole bunch of things so that you can become an overnight success 30 years later, or 10 or 5 or whatever. That's kind of how it works. What about yourself?
I think it's interesting. May King, I want you to weigh in here, mate. Sorry, it's but I think we're kind of really resonating on this story here. For me, my company that owns the business that went under was called Market Hope. And hope, by definition, isn't this kind of Western world wishful thinking. It's actually, its definition is confident expectation of good. And so it was like I say, if you're hoping for something, it's almost like a faith, right? You know it's going to come to pass. You know it's going to come true. And here I was sitting at my pit, was like, all right, so I'm here to help people discover whatever this confident expectation is for their business. I can't even find it for myself. And a similar journey. Once I mean, obviously I didn't end up in jail or anything like that. I'm going to ask you a few questions about some of the decisions you made that were great and some that weren't so great. But, once I started to pick myself off the floor, it took a couple of months. I started to make better, clearer decisions. Like you, I knew that there was just people I couldn't pay back. There was some that I personally wasn't. We've got different company laws in Australia. There were people I wasn't personally responsible for, but it wasn't legally responsible for, but I felt personally responsible. So we made sure they were taken care of. And then anything I was legally responsible for, I dived in and organized all of that. I was actually a small business lobbyist at the time as well. So here I am advising. We were in a big transition of prime ministers at the time. We'd just shifted from a long-term Conservative Prime Minister to Labor, to a more liberal politician. And here I was sort of trying to mop this thing up on the side whilst advising the country on small business policy. And it was so there was a lot of dealing with ego. There was a lot of, but the good decisions for me were, deciding not to go personally bankrupt. That was a good decision. So I said, nope, whatever it takes, we'll pay it back. And so we sold our house, we sold everything we could, and started paying that back. It took about 7 years to really clean it up. It's not like you just go, boom, it's done next week. But I feel like for me, then going back and advising business, that was the hard part. It was that kind of that sense of failure and having to own that and deal with that while still advising people on success.
Yeah.
So I just want to talk about CEO Entrepreneur, the YouTube channel, because I absolutely love it, Tamer. When I watch the episodes, it's like you're talking to me personally, and I am nodding, I am giggling, I'm laughing because I've been there, I've done that, but I want to do things differently. And obviously, because you've just shared your incredible story, and I've heard this story 3-4 times now, and I still cry. It still wells me up inside. But you've picked yourself up, you dusted it off, and now you're starting your YouTube channel where you are helping businesses to scale. And knowing, there's lots of questions as a business owner who want to go to the next level, and you've been able to teach that, and also grow your YouTube channel as well at the same time, and you're sharing how you're doing that. And you've recently released a workflow on how to grow your YouTube channel for those people who are wanting to grow that. So can you tell us a little bit more about CEO Entrepreneur and why you started it and what your intentions are for it?
Good question. Right. So there are two sort of fundamental sort of branches to CEO Entrepreneur. So one of them is the business side, where we run and help entrepreneurs scale their businesses, and we do that through one-to-one as well as group programs. Now, the other one, which was the YouTube channel, which I think is what you're referring to more, there were several reasons for me to do that. One of them was strategic, but also the other one was very much in terms of trying to impact people that may not necessarily be able to afford having our services. So the success, as we were talking earlier, for me was basically, how do I impact as many people as possible to understand how to grow their businesses? And for me, I said, right, actually, this would probably be one of the best ways to be able to have that kind of exposure. And I know that at the moment it's still a baby channel, but I'm hopefully very ambitious about growing it. And the other aspect of it was the strategic aspect, where I had been successful in other industries, not in this particular one. So for me to come in and say, hey, look at me, I'm going to help people grow their businesses, I wanted to be able to establish myself in this space. Strategically, we were going to do one of two things: either go from a pricing perspective as a business, either go really sort of low price and high volume, or go high price and low volume. And we decided to go for the latter, which is the high price, low volume. And to be able to establish that brand positioning and be able to establish that credibility and the authority there, I decided that YouTube was one of the best ways to do that. But also I wanted to get that content repurposed amongst other sort of formats as well. So I wanted a blog article on the website so that we can be indexed and searched. I wanted to have social media sort of omnipresence, if you will. And I thought that if I sat there and did all of these things myself, it will take a huge amount of time. And if I sat there and I did the article by itself, then I would still need to record the video. So I thought, actually, if I focus my own time on building the YouTube channel and actually recording the videos, then I can have a team of people behind me who actually then are repurposing that material, creating the articles, doing the social media, all of that stuff. Then that actually was a good starting point and a great use of my time. Now, when you say that I'm talking to you, and that's exactly what it is, I sat down and actually said, right, who is basically the ideal person that I'm going to be sitting down talking to? And I put a picture of May King on my wall, and I basically, no, I didn't. But
that just got creepy.
It did. Not in a creepy sense, but anyway. So I wanted to understand who I was speaking with, and I wanted to really understand that this is somebody who's really struggling to grow their business, and it's someone who potentially was like me several years back, who has actually got a great business idea, but doesn't necessarily know how to grow it and scale it and actually run it as a business. And a lot of, because again, I keep harking back to the education system. The education system teaches us to become experts in our fields, not entrepreneurs as in our field. And there is a big fundamental difference here. So we end up all being experts in our field, thinking that we're qualified to run businesses in that expertise. And that doesn't necessarily always work out. And that's where I started that YouTube channel. And I thought, well, if I'm going to start a YouTube channel, let me use it as a case study of actually, let me treat the YouTube channel as a little bitty mini business unit. And I'm going to say that this is a product in and of itself. I'm going to get sponsorship in the future. I'm going to have its own revenue stream through ads. I'm going to build it as its own unit and actually document my journey across that to show people that here's a case study of how you can grow a business, but also here's a case study of how you can grow YouTube, which is also searchable and rankable and something that you can actually get. So there are a lot of strategies playing around in place in terms of why we ended up doing it that way. But at the end of the day as well, I just wanted to have some fun, have a look at the camera and just...
Well, and I think from a business point of view, it sounds really smart in terms of creating multiple streams of potential income and opportunities. And I know, we had someone from LinkedIn, or talking about LinkedIn last week, and we had Shelley, and so the same deal, just knowing your audience, knowing your market, knowing how you're going to target. In that sense, marketing and business hasn't changed a bit, right? It's just the way we deliver it that's changed.
Absolutely. It's always going to be understand your market and where they hang out, and actually then go and speak to them. And I think that's what marketing fundamentally comes down to. And at the moment, a lot of people were saying, a lot of people were saying that YouTube is like oversaturated and there's so much. And I don't believe that for a second. I think that video is still early on. I mean, people are still like, shooting movies, and, movies have been around for like, 100 years or so. So, how long has YouTube been around? It's a tiny thing in sort of a big, in the bigger scheme of things. So I thought to myself, actually, let's do something on YouTube. But also I just wanted it to be more entertaining as well. So that's why I didn't want it to be stuffy. Here's a lecture. Here's how you do this. So I just thought, let me actually try and make it as entertaining as possible, inject some of my really bad sense of humor, and, and, hope that somebody's actually watching.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Now, here at Business in Bare Feet, we are a collection of mentors, and we also hope that being in business can often feel like the loneliest place on the planet, but it doesn't need to be, because at Business in Bare Feet you can come and gain access to mentors of any speciality. We've got people from the legal team, people who've help you for VC funding, social media experts, marketing experts like Jono. Tamer, can you tell us a little bit about how mentoring, being a mentee has helped your business, and also being a mentor, how that's helped you? Because I know that, when we had our first session, when you mentored me, you opened up my eyes of the possibilities that I could have for my business as FOMO creator, something that I'd never even considered. So if you'd like to share your story about being a mentor and being a mentee.
Yeah, I'm of the firm belief that to be successful at anything, you need to be coached and mentored, and you never stop. You never stop learning. And if you one day sit there and say, that's me, I'm done, I know everything there is to know about the world, then you're seriously mistaken and highly arrogant. So I still believe that even till today, I still need mentors. And at the same time, we can then pass on that knowledge to people who are basically walking in that journey, who have not got to the stages where we're at yet. And that's kind of the circle of life, if you will. So I genuinely believe that people will not, I think that the fundamental thing here is time as well. With mentorship, in addition to coaching, and I separate the two together, and the way that we deliver it is actually a hybrid of the two, because I think coaching, as a lot of people understand it, is that making you accountable and sort of asking you to find the answers within and gaining that clarity and confidence and so on and so forth. Whereas mentorship is basically, here's someone who's experienced, who's done that and been there, and actually says, hey, don't do this. It will save you 3 years of misery, you know, just go this way. And because I've done that, it didn't work. And actually, if you do that, it's going to be just nothing but hell. And I think that I think that mentorship is really, really important for that. And there are never points where you sit there and actually say, I don't need it anymore. Case in point is that mastermind that we had. I mean, I still had failed my business, but I'd actually picked myself up again financially. But still, I needed that mentorship at the time, and I needed that sort of brain power, if you will, where people were saying, hey, it's okay. Actually, this is really useful. You've now become a better business person. You need to do this. And have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about doing that? And I went back that day and I said, actually, this is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to do it, actually. And I've never looked back since then. And it's you know, so being a part of a community always of mentors, I think is hugely, hugely powerful. And what you guys are doing is actually really amazing and incredible. I was having a look at it, and I think that it would be a smart decision to make sure that we always are, you know, having mentors for ourselves, but also at the same time mentoring other people that are coming down in that path. And it just depends where you are in that journey.
Yeah, and I think one of the traps in that can be that you feel like, okay, so I hire a coach or I have a mentor, and so therefore that's it, right? And so, you know, so I don't know about you, but I've got people who mentor me financially. I've got people who mentor me even in marketing, people who mentor me in leadership. You know, and they're, you know, call them mentors, they're friends as well. I think the mentoring relationship, yes, if you go into the corporate world, they have mentoring programs, but it tends to be I think coaching's similar, but coaching can be a little bit more transactional, like you said, because it's, you know, it's a certain formula. But mentoring is the implication is that this is a person that either you kind of like, or you at least like what they're on about, because, you know, they might personally rub you the wrong way, but that's what you need, right? and so, yeah, I mean, and that's where having a breadth of mentors, not just one, is so important. I mean, I've got mentors in my private life as well, you know, my marriage, in my spiritual journey, and all sorts of things. And so,
yeah, I completely agree. And you're quite right. It's not just one person, because you're not always going to get that sort of depth of knowledge from just one person. That one person is going to be very, very strong at one key thing, and make sure that you understand what it is that you're trying to get. So I love what you've just said in terms of making sure that you've got financial mentors as well as marketing and so on and so forth.
Well, you don't want me as your financial mentor.
No?
I can't even spell P&L.
All right, I'll ask to borrow money later on then.
No, I'm kidding. I can. So obviously, as a guy who doesn't focus as much on the financial side, one of the things I learned was enough to be able to read balance sheets, P&L, to be able to do cash flows, to be able to, you know, to manage things. But yeah, it's not something that I like. Once I get to a certain point, it's like, okay, you really need to be speaking to, you know, a forensic accountant or, you know, something like that. That's when it's getting a bit dire. But but it's also, yeah, as part of the mentor's job is knowing when they've reached their limit.
Absolutely. And it also works as part of your team as well. When you're building your team, you make sure that a lot of people sit there and worry about getting people that are better than them. I actually only get people that are better than me in certain aspects within my business. I will sit there and say, right, actually, if I'm this person and this is my strength, where are my weaknesses? Let's go get someone who's amazing in that. And they could also contribute, but also I will learn from them as well as part of the process. And that's how it works everywhere. So within my business at the moment, I'm hiring people that are infinitely better than me in marketing and in other places.
I wonder if some of that, though, is the journey of failure that takes you there, that realizes at the bottom, you know, you kind of feel like everyone's better than you, right? Like just physically in that. And so it's not that you're coming from a place of weakness. It's like, I realize I need help. I need these people. And this this presents a challenge as a professional coach and mentor as well, is often people will hire you once they're desperate. I found this when I was in marketing too. It's like, we've tried all this marketing stuff, we've screwed up, which they tried one or two things and they were horrible. And so they're kind of, then they're also a little bit gun shy as well.
Yeah, one of the things that I did a recent video on my YouTube channel titled "Are Successful Entrepreneurs Born or Made?" It's a usual debate that everyone sort of sits there and talks about. So I thought, hey, let me pitch in.
I think we'll have another fireside chat and talk about that.
Yeah, it is crazy. But just to give you a little summary, because it actually follows on from what you're saying. I was doing a lot of research about the topic, and actually even sort of like studies that were done on the issue. And studies actually showed that entrepreneurs, when they looked at in terms of whether they were born or made, actually the majority were born. However, successful entrepreneurs were actually the majority. Research showed that they were made. And the reason was because a lot of people are born into families where they are born into entrepreneurship, but they don't necessarily actually make it, and they don't actually necessarily succeed. But the ones that do succeed are the ones that go and get mentorship, and the ones that will fail and will get up back on their feet again and learn from other people and actually strive. So actually that really ties in well with what you
all that experience and so forth. And it probably plays into, there's a lot of data out there that shows that the most successful entrepreneurs are actually not your 20 somethings. They're actually your 40, 45 somethings.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily in tech.
No.
And so, but it probably plays into that, you know, there's a lot of, you've almost mentored yourself through probably 20 years of stuff. So it probably plays a bit into that as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I just thought it was a very interesting thing, and it just harks back again to this whole mentorship mentee thing. And I think that that's really useful. So tell me a little bit more about what you guys are doing.
May King.
Well, I think traditionally with business owners, they will hire a mentor to help them, or a coach, or a bit of both. And with Sandtrax, which is the community group that we have, mentors and mentees can actually come together. So through Facebook Messenger, we can hang out, and there might be something that's really pressing that you just need other eyes and ears on. So we can come into that group and we can talk about it and gain access to mentors from around the world with that. And then Business in Bare Feet is the paid community, isn't it, Jono?
Business in Bare Feet. So Business in Bare Feet is the overall business. Yep. So Sandtrax, there's a Sandtrax group on Facebook, which is free to join. Anyone can go and join that. And then there is the Sandtrax Club, which is a paid mentoring club. And so that's just, obviously we use the group as where we have the open conversations. And then, the people who go into the club, they get, Slack channel access and direct access to over 25 mentors all over the world. As May King suggested, from all different walks of life in business, but I also love that global aspect. So just simple things like you said, like, I didn't know that signing a check in whatever country it was it the UAE or something like that? I didn't know that signing a check meant that I'm personally responsible for that and I could go to jail for it. I didn't know that. And there's probably someone watching this going, oh crap, I just signed a check in the UAE,
Yeah.
So it's those snippets of information. So the Sandtrax community is very much about, our clients, our group members and our clients in the club. They have that opportunity to talk on a regular basis. And the mentors, it's an open relationship where the mentors are watching conversations and they'll put their 2 cents in when they need to, with the view that those mentors can then also go to that person and say, hey, we can look at a professional relationship and mentor you through one-to-one on that. So it very much plays into that variety. We've all had some, your story it's an amazing and very open and raw story, but we've all had some kind of story like that. And so we've all been there. We know what it's like to wake up every day and go, oh, if I don't get out of bed and do something, I won't eat tonight. You know, we know what that feels like, and that's not a common feeling in the West, right? With Social Security and safe jobs and government work and whatever. And so we've all been through that, but then there's also been that, okay, we've actually hit some highlights as well. It's not just about the bad stuff, it's the highlights and how we handle that. So as you've talked about today.
So what's in store for Tamer Shahin in 2021?
Oh, some downtime, hopefully. But before that, I think we're sort of gearing up to launch a group program for becoming the CEO of your business, of your own small business. So we've got people who are 6-figure plus, where they've basically got a model that works, are small sort of businesses or solopreneurs who just don't know how to grow and scale and kind of hit a ceiling. We're giving a 12-month sort of intensive program for them, which will include sort of both learning material, but also coaching, mentoring, as well as a mastermind. And it's kind of what we did was we took a step back and said, actually, what works? We don't want to be one of those programs where it's generic and actually it just, here's a course for 6 weeks and go away. That usually never works. So we wanted to make it a 12-month program where actually we are results driven, and we want to be there whilst people, because it takes around 12 months to notice a significant difference in a business in terms of how it grows and scales. So we wanted to be able to do that. But also I'm working on a model behind the scenes where we're also going to be able to have a small consulting team that actually customizes and personalizes their strategic journey along the way.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So it's going to be like a comprehensive sort of all sort of 360 view of how you can really grow and scale your business. And we're launching that in January, and that's kind of where all our head is on at the moment.
Beautiful.
Whilst also building my my YouTube channel as we keep going. Next up, like world domination.
I'll get you a white cat to stroke, but
yeah. No, yeah, I'm kidding, but those are the two big things. I put off actually writing a book this year when I realized actually how well the YouTube channel did. Because that was actually one of the things, May King, that we spoke about on the mastermind table, where I was actually, it was highly recommended that I write a book about this. I've written textbooks before for universities and not really anything factual about myself. So this one will be very, very different. I had planned to do it in the fourth quarter this year, but when the YouTube channel actually did really well, considering it's only just 4 months old, we've had some videos on there that have got over 1,000 views, and we've got like, I think almost 350 subscribers now at the moment. So yes, it's still tiny. I'm not suggesting that we've kind of exploded, but based on the age of the channel, it's done phenomenally well, and I was completely overwhelmed by the amount of support I got and the reactions that I was getting, and I thought, actually, let me focus my time on that. Yeah. So hopefully next year, if things stabilize on that front, I'll be revisiting also writing a book. What about you guys? What's in store for 2021?
Well, time off sounds good.
Right. Let's agree on a place together and we'll...
Yeah. I actually really want to, I mean, obviously we're all waiting to see what happens worldwide. You know, I've noticed the UK has come out first and announced they've approved the vaccine, which is still 10 days away from being approved here in the US, and I think about a month in Australia. And so once all that starts to, once some things start to loosen up, so simple things like here, they're now coming out and saying that you don't actually need 14 days quarantine anymore. The CDC's just come out and said that. And so they're talking about 7 days now. If you have a negative result at the end of that. And so those sorts of things mean, okay, it's, you know, I don't mind quarantining in another country or somewhere else for 7 days. 14 was too much of a stretch. For me, I want to get back into traveling again. I spent a lot of time in Africa. I just started to build some really interesting networks in Eastern Europe. I've done business in Kazakhstan, places like that. I'm also helping a buddy move or build a business or move it from Australia to the US. So that's going to be an interesting opportunity when that happens. Getting investment behind it and all that sort of thing. So it's going to be a busy year next year, but I think it's going to be very rewarding after this year. I feel like this year was just very foundational, just getting back to some roots, almost like the conversation we had, just getting back to why am I in this in the first place? So what does that mean I should be doing? And so, yeah.
Awesome. What about you, May King?
I think for me, like Jono said, this year has been foundational, and it's about allaying my imposter syndrome, thoughts and feelings that I had a lot this year. But the chat that we had, Tamer, was incredible, and that's really helped to pave the way for next year. So, website coming up soon, and putting in place the FOMO Creator Academy. That's my goal for next year. So yeah, watch your space.
and you got to meet me this year, May King. I mean, that was,
of course,
that must have been revolutionary for you.
Me too.
Yeah. It's been fun working alongside May King. As you can see, she's just got the best laugh, the best smile, and I know it's I get better as my coffee goes down, my energy levels go up. These are always first thing in the morning for me. But it's it really is a pleasure. And so that's what when we really look back on this year, I don't talk about it being a crazy year, a hard year, or a difficult year. It was foundational. I grew a lot. Could I have made more money? Maybe. Could we have had, if COVID wasn't around, could we have had a wildly successful year? Maybe. But maybe I wouldn't have, like we talk about the success thing, maybe I wouldn't have got stuff out of it that I ended up getting. And some of the opportunities that seem to be exponential on that. And so
I see this year as a way that every once in a while you kind of need to sort of have a pause and reflect and then kind of move on. And I think it gave the whole world an opportunity to sort of pause.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably much needed, because we were just racing ahead. For me as well, it was very foundational. I agree. And CEO Entrepreneur, the YouTube channel, the whole thing sort of came out, meeting both of you guys as well. So it to me, actually, yes, it's been unfortunate that many people suffered from COVID, but in other ways, it's actually been quite a positive year.
It has been a very interesting
overall,
reset button.
Yeah. An interesting reboot, reset button is the best way to put it.
So as we said, the true failure is not learning from failure, right? And so we've got to make sure that we really build on that, and we encourage others, as it sounds like, Tamer, that's in your heart, to do that as well, is to really help others as much as possible. I've really enjoyed this conversation today. It's been fantastic. Tamer, I thank you so much for your time with everything going on in your world. Just your insights, your story is very raw. We'll obviously load some links and so forth. They'll be at the bottom of in the bio of the video on YouTube, or we've got all your Instagram and LinkedIn networks and so forth. Any websites, but as you start to release these programs, we would love to hear about them. So I don't know if you've actually joined the Sand Traps group, but you can go in there and then you can just say, hey, I'm running this program, I'm doing this, and we can approve that.
I will do, actually.
We always appreciate that. It's not just about what we're doing.
No, I do that. I think one of the things I thank you very much for having me. But one of the things that I do always believe in, from a business perspective, is partnerships. And if anyone's watching, having partnerships is one of the best things to do to grow and scale your business.
There's probably a lot of entrepreneurs when you said partnership, a lot of entrepreneurs go, oh, because they think about a business partner rather than,
joint venture partnerships, that kind of thing. Like, that's that kind of thing. But not the, I'm not sharing any of my business with you, Jono. Mine.
And you could be successful, Probably a wise thing. Well done.
Yeah, thought so.
Dang, we're thousands of miles away, and you've already got the cut of my jib, man.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. A real blessing. Just hang around for a second while we just we'll knock off the live feed, but just hang around for 1 second. But thanks, May King, as always. It's a lot of fun.
Thanks, May King.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both.